On a bitterly cold December night in 2009, snow and wind swept across the deserts of western Utah. Most parents would have kept their children indoors, but sometime after midnight, Josh Powell claimed he bundled his two young sons into the family minivan and drove them into that frozen darkness for an overnight camping trip. He said his wife, Susan, remained home because she was tired. By the following evening, Josh had returned with the boys. Susan was gone. Her purse, wallet, and identification were still inside the house. She had missed work without calling, and her cell phone was in the minivan Josh had taken into the desert. That strange camping trip became the center of one of America's most troubling missing person cases, a case filled with warning signs, shifting stories, unsettling family secrets, and lost opportunities. Susan Powell has never been found. No one has ever been tried for causing her disappearance, but investigators eventually announced what they believed had happened, and the man at the center of their investigation would later commit an act so horrifying that it forever changed the meaning of this case. This is the disappearance of Susan Cox Powell. Hello, and welcome to Cold Cases with Alan Key. I'm Alan Key. In this episode, we will examine who Susan was, what happened during the critical hours surrounding her disappearance, why investigators focused on her husband, and why the case remains unresolved more than 16 years later. It is important to say at the beginning that Josh Powell was never charged with killing Susan. Because there was no trial, many of the accusations against him were never tested before a jury. Where a point represents a police conclusion rather than a proven fact, I will make that distinction clear. Susan Marie Cox was born on October 16, 1981. She grew up in a close family and was remembered as outgoing, hardworking, and devoted to the people she loved. She met Joshua Powell through activities connected with their church. The two married in 2001 and eventually settled in West Valley City, Utah, near Salt Lake City. They had two sons, Charles, often called Charlie, and Braden. By December 2009, Susan was 28 years old. She worked, cared for her boys, and maintained an active life. But behind the appearance of an ordinary young family, there were serious problems. Friends and relatives later described Josh as controlling. The couple had financial difficulties. Susan documented concerns about their marriage in emails, journals, recordings, and a handwritten will. In one particularly disturbing video, she recorded household property and indicated that she wanted a record in case something happened to her. In the handwritten document, Susan wrote that the marriage was in extreme turmoil. She warned that if she died, it might not be an accident, even if it appeared to be one. That statement would become chilling after she vanished. There was another deeply troubling part of Susan's life: her father-in-law, Stephen Powell. The family had once lived in his Washington home. Stephen developed an obsession with Susan, made unwanted advances toward her, and secretly recorded and photographed her. Susan rejected him. Years later, when police searched Stephen's home, they found thousands of images of Susan taken without her knowledge, along with recordings of other women and girls. His behavior did not prove what happened to Susan, but it revealed a disturbing environment surrounding the Powell family. Sunday, December 6, 2009, began without any public sign that Susan was about to disappear. Susan took Charlie and Braden to church that morning. Later that afternoon, a neighbor visited the Powell home. The neighbor left at around 5 o'clock. That was the last confirmed time anyone outside the household saw Susan. According to accounts of that evening, the neighbor had helped Susan with a knitting or crocheting project and ate with the family. Susan reportedly became tired and went to lie down. What happened after the neighbor left has never been fully established. Josh would later tell police that shortly after midnight, he decided to take Charlie and Braden camping along the Pony Express Trail in western Utah. He claimed Susan stayed behind because she was tired. Consider the circumstances. It was the middle of the night. Temperatures were dangerously cold. A winter storm was moving through the area. The children were only 4 and 2 years old. And Monday was a work day. The boys were expected at daycare, while both parents had responsibilities the next morning. Yet Josh said he believed it was still Sunday and had lost track of the day. The explanation did not sound reasonable to investigators, and the physical evidence would make it even more difficult to accept. On Monday morning, December 7th, the Powell children did not arrive at daycare. When the provider could not reach Susan or Josh, family members became concerned. Relatives went to the house but received no answer. Police were called. Because the entire family appeared to be missing, and because officers considered the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning, they entered the home. No one was inside. Officers noticed fans blowing across a wet area on a couch. Susan's purse, wallet, and identification remained at home. She had not gone to work and had not contacted her family, friends, or employer. The family's minivan was also gone. At approximately 5 that afternoon, Josh returned in the minivan with Charlie and Braden. He said he did not know where Susan was. He then gave police the story about taking the boys camping after midnight. Susan's cell phone was found inside the minivan. The SIM card had been removed. Investigators also learned that Josh had been using Susan's phone. He could not point police to convincing evidence of the campsite he described. When officers later searched the Pony Express trail area, they found nothing that verified his account. Most people confronted with a missing spouse would be expected to show alarm and cooperate fully. Investigators believed Josh's behavior was unusual. He was guarded, provided limited information, and soon obtained an attorney. Again, hiring a lawyer is not evidence of guilt. Every person has the right to legal advice. But taken with the bizarre camping story and the evidence inside the home, police quickly viewed Josh as a person of interest. As detectives examined the Powell residence, several details raised concern. They found traces of Susan's blood. Later testing identified at least one sample as hers. The amount alone did not conclusively establish a homicide, but it became one more piece of a troubling pattern. Investigators recovered Susan's private writings, including the warning that if she died, it might not be accidental. They also learned about marital conflict, financial pressure, and life insurance policies. After Susan disappeared, Josh took steps that seemed inconsistent with expecting her to return. Investigators said he withdrew the children from daycare, canceled Susan's scheduled appointments, and eventually liquidated her retirement accounts. Police also learned that Josh had reportedly spoken with co-workers about ways a body might be concealed in an abandoned mine in Utah's western desert. None of those circumstances, standing alone, proved murder. Together, however, they strengthened investigators' suspicions. Then there were the words of the Powell's young son. When Charlie was interviewed, he made statements suggesting that Susan had gone on the camping trip but had not returned with them. Because Charlie was only 4, his comments had to be handled carefully. Young children can misunderstand questions or express memories imperfectly. Still, what he said appeared to contradict his father's central claim that Susan had stayed home. In another reported moment, Charlie said that his mother was with them but stayed where the crystals were. What did that mean? Was it a child's confused description of a desert location, a mine, or something else entirely? Investigators could not turn it into a location they could search with certainty. Josh's actions in the days after Susan vanished created another mystery. After additional police questioning, he rented a car at Salt Lake City International Airport. During the period he had the vehicle, he drove hundreds of miles, reportedly more than 800, without providing investigators with a clear, verifiable account of everywhere he went. Those miles created a huge search area across Utah and potentially beyond. If evidence had been moved or hidden, investigators could not know which direction Josh had taken. Police searched desert terrain, abandoned mines, and other locations. Search teams faced an enormous problem. Western Utah contains vast, isolated stretches of land, countless back roads, mine shafts, and areas where remains could be concealed for decades. Searches produced possible clues and moments of hope, but none led to Susan. Josh eventually left Utah and moved with the boys to Washington State, where much of his family lived. Publicly, he and his father suggested Susan might have abandoned her family or left with another man. Susan's relatives firmly rejected those claims. Her personal belongings remained behind, and there was no verified financial, digital, or eyewitness trail showing that she had voluntarily started a new life. As the case widened, police examined other members of the Powell family. Stephen Powell's obsession with Susan came under intense scrutiny. When authorities searched his home, they discovered the secret images and videos. He was later convicted of voyeurism-related crimes. However, he was not charged in Susan's disappearance. Investigators also focused on Josh's brother, Michael Powell. Shortly after Susan vanished, Michael abandoned a Ford Taurus at a wrecking yard in Pendleton, Oregon. He later obtained satellite images of the lot. When investigators finally examined the car, a cadaver dog alerted near the trunk, suggesting the odor of decomposition may once have been present. Testing did not produce conclusive DNA evidence tying the vehicle to Susan. Michael died by suicide in 2013. West Valley City Police later stated that they believed Josh killed Susan and that Michael helped conceal her body. That was the department's investigative conclusion, not a verdict reached in court. The absence of Susan's remains created a major obstacle. Prosecutors can and do bring murder cases without a body, but those cases require strong evidence proving both that the missing person is dead and that the accused caused the death. Investigators had suspicion, disturbing circumstantial evidence, and inconsistencies. What they did not have was Susan, a confirmed crime scene showing how she died, or enough admissible evidence to file charges they believed they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. In 2011, after Stephen Powell's arrest, Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, sought custody of Charlie and Braden. A Washington court placed the boys with their grandparents and allowed Josh supervised visitation while evaluations and the custody process continued. The children had already lost their mother. Their grandparents feared they could also be in danger. Concerns were raised about Josh's behavior and about what might happen if he believed he would permanently lose custody. On February 5, 2012, a social worker brought 7-year-old Charlie and 5-year-old Braden to Josh's rented house near Puyallup, Washington, for a supervised visit. As the boys approached the house, Josh pulled them inside and shut the social worker out. She smelled gasoline and immediately called 911. Inside, Josh attacked his sons and ignited the gasoline. The resulting fire and explosion killed Josh, Charlie, and Braden. Investigators determined that the act was planned. Josh had sent messages and made arrangements suggesting he did not intend for himself or the boys to leave the house alive. The person who knew the most about Susan's disappearance was now dead. Her sons, possible witnesses to what happened during that nighttime trip, were dead as well. The loss was almost beyond comprehension. For Chuck and Judy Cox, it meant losing their daughter and then both grandsons. The deaths also led to years of scrutiny over the child welfare system and whether more could have been done to protect Charlie and Braden. A Washington jury later found the state negligent in their deaths, although subsequent appeals changed the legal and financial outcome. Whatever the courtroom result, the central tragedy remained the same. Repeated warning signs did not prevent the boys from being placed within Josh's reach. In May 2013, West Valley City Police announced they were closing the active phase of the Susan Powell investigation. Closing an active investigation did not mean the case was solved, forgotten, or permanently shut. It meant detectives had exhausted their promising leads with the evidence then available. Police publicly stated their belief that Josh had murdered Susan and that Michael had assisted in hiding her body. Both men were dead. Susan had not been found, and no criminal prosecution was possible against them. To this day, Susan remains listed as missing by West Valley City. The department asks anyone with information to contact police and reference case number 09/054602. The unanswered question is no longer only who investigators believe was responsible. The question is, where is Susan? Was she left somewhere along the Pony Express Trail? Was she hidden in an abandoned mine? Did Josh use the rental car to move her remains to a location investigators never identified? And did Michael know the final location? The desert keeps its secrets well. But secrets can also survive in documents, photographs, overlooked electronic records, and the memories of people who were afraid to speak. So what does this case teach us? Susan's case demonstrates why warning signs of domestic abuse must be taken seriously even when there's no obvious physical violence. Control over money, isolation, threats, obsessive monitoring, and fear within a relationship can all signal danger. Susan did something important. She documented her concerns. Her writings and recordings helped investigators understand what had been happening behind closed doors. But documentation alone could not save her. The case also shows the difficulty of proving a suspected murder without a body. Investigators may strongly believe they understand what happened, yet suspicion is not enough for a criminal conviction. Evidence must be collected lawfully, presented in court, and proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Finally, this case is a reminder that unresolved crimes affect far more than one victim. Susan's disappearance left 2 children without their mother. The investigation became tangled with a custody battle, disturbing discoveries, and, ultimately, the murders of Charlie and Braden. Susan should not be remembered only as the missing wife of Josh Powell. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a co-worker, and a mother who tried to protect her sons. She was a young woman who recognized danger and left behind her own warning. If stories like Susan Powell's interest you, I invite you to read my book, Cold Cases: The Most Infamous Unsolved Murders and the Science That Could Solve Them Today, available on Amazon. The book examines some of history's most haunting, unsolved crimes and explains how modern investigative methods, including DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, digital forensics, and renewed examination of old evidence, can give cold cases new life. Susan's case reminds us that even when investigators believe they know what happened, a case is not truly finished while a victim remains missing and important questions remain unanswered. If you have credible information about Susan Powell's disappearance, contact West Valley City Police Dispatch at 801-840-4000 and reference case number 09/054602. Do not attempt to investigate possible locations on your own, especially abandoned mines or remote desert areas. Give the information directly to law enforcement. Thank you for listening to Cold Cases with Alan Key. If you found this episode informative, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who follows unsolved cases. Sharing Susan's story helps keep attention on the one answer her family still deserves. Until next time, remember, behind every cold case is a victim. Behind every unanswered question is a family still waiting for answers. And no matter how many years have passed, the truth still matters.